please welcome Alessandro.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alessandro Antonini. I'm a manager for Ernst & Young PAS, that is the HR consulting unit. In this presentation, I will show you first what's our approach to gamification. I would like to specify that our approach to gamification is more strictly related to what's the most effective way to improve process effectiveness or training effectiveness. So I'll show you 5 cases in the end of this presentation that they must be considered as an example of gamification development projects within a more broader or more complex projects. For us, that we work mainly with HR departments, gamification is just one single aspect of a more complex program of change management or training of reskilling of employees. So we started by our reflection on what are the main models of corporate learning and development services. In this case, I represented these 4 models because they are not alternatives, but are the evolution of each other. So we have to intend this progression as a constant evolution of what we intend to learning and development. I will talk more about learning and development because it's my key competency area. So I apologize, but it's my comfort zone. So I use this approach to show you that companies are passing by these 4 stages. The first stage is the function-driven, where essentially teams that may refer to from HR departments, sales, marketing, or also operation, ask us to identify motivational levels. And so we design a gamification system that can reduce, that can try to solve 2 problems. The first, how can we reduce the time to perform of our employees? The second, how can we achieve all the standards defined by our internal policies and procedures? For example, how can I guarantee the maximum percentage of coverage and completion of mandatory training? So this is the first model. In Italy, many of our clients are still focusing on this model, but we are trying to move them forward to the corporate university academy model. It's essentially a model where companies start to pay attention to the engagement of their employees' population. Essentially, the university academy metaphor is quite useful to structure in a more systematic way the training offer, and doing so to start reasoning about the motivational level and so the engagement team within the organization. In this model, engagement is the key problem, a key question that we might answer in our project. So we first of all we designed the engagement models and engagement strategies. Secondly, we define with the client if it is necessary or not to design and prepare and set up and deploy a gamification system. Because for our perspective, gamification is an engagement level that must be considered if it is always applicable or not. So in the corporate university academy model, we'll effectively start to consider if there are possibilities to deploy gamification in a more systematic way, and not just to solve the first two problems or issues that I mentioned before. Then there is the learning community model. The learning community model is essential the attempt of the organization to leverage of the community dynamics, so social dynamics, interaction, informal interaction between employees to different kind of targets or goals. First, to capitalize on knowledge. The capitalization of knowledge, that's an area of knowledge management, is a key topic because especially with increasingly high turnover rates, especially for consulting services, every time one employee leaves the company, a piece of knowledge, a piece of value could be lost. So if there is not knowledge capitalization, we risk to lose this value. And so we try to stimulate these efforts of knowledge sharing also with gamification. Learning community model allows the companies also to identify knowledge owners, subject matter experts, and to reward them for their efforts within the organization. So it's also a very powerful retention level, and it enables a series of initiatives like, for example, mentorship programs or ambassadorship programs within the firm. But if we pass to the last model, the knowledge hub, we can see this effort not only included within the company's edges, but also towards the external environment. And so we will see in the cases an example of this application towards the external environment. But I'd like to propose the gamification just as not just as an engagement level, but also with some of more powerful, if strictly related to business necessities and to organizational structures and their specific goals. This data were mentioned before by our colleague, but essentially the gamification market is rapidly increasing, and their growth is estimated to be almost exponential, if we can see in the data. Here I propose to you our definition of gamification, but in a simple way. Gamification is used to induce behavioral change. Behavioral change acting directly on behaviors and social dynamics, so relationships. This change must be strictly connected to business goals. Otherwise, the risk is to produce engagement only on the gamification program by itself, but not to extend these engagement outcomes on other business areas. So, in this definition, you can see two words, engagement and alignment. Engagement have not to be the goal by itself, but it has to be related to cultural alignment. So gamification, we consider gamification as a change management level, as a project stream specifically dedicated to trying to find a more funny or less boring way to align employees to cultural values and cultural transformation by leveraging on intrinsic motivation levels. So these are 7 reasons that we show to our clients to convince them that gamification is an effective way to achieve their results. So we talked about engagement. When we achieve top engagement, we can stimulate loyalty. And loyalty for employees is essential reduction of a total cost of employership. So if we increase loyalty, we have people that are happier to stay within the company, and people that are more likely to act ambassadorship actions or behavior towards also the external environment. For example, we can just see what happens nowadays in social networks, when it is an important topic related to the management of corporate reputation by single individuals on the social network. So I think that is a key topic that we, a hot topic that we are, with we are coping now for our clients, but it's important, its relevance will increase in the next years. We use gamification also to stimulate learning efforts and knowledge transfer, as I mentioned before, but also to show to employees what are the efforts of the company toward them. So increasing brand interaction is not just focusing on the final client, so on selling results or CRM practices. Brand interactions is for us in an employee experience perspective, so a more broader perspective, is for us working on the employee to induce positive effects, so to impact business outcomes on all the employee-customer relationship process, from the employee onboarding training to the managing of the relationship services between employee and customer. For example, after sales, customer services, and so on. This is a notorious model. The MDA framework has been developed in 2004, so it's quite old, but still effective, because every time we try to develop a gamification project that has at its core a gamification system, we have to identify rewarding schemes. Rewarding schemes are essentially the I try to associate it with behavioral psychology studies, so Skinner and his colleague. But essentially, we talk about what kind of action we'd like to promote. What are the actions that will be considered winning actions and or not? And these actions, to what kind of game mechanics are related? So if I complete the challenges, the daily challenges, so like reading an article or just uploading new data from on my CRM, what I will obtain by doing this? Interacting with mechanics, I will activate dynamics. Dynamics are essential effects of the interaction with mechanics, and are two kinds of effects. The first effect is the fact that I can obtain point prizes, and that I can ramp up or down, or in the leaderboard, for example. Other kind of the dynamics is in this case the increasing competition between peers. The aesthetics is the dimension strictly related to psychological emotional states. So how do I feel comparing to this competitive environment, these kind of challenges, and this system, how it has been designed? So I think that this model is a core paradigm to read all the schemes within the gamification system that we design for our clients. We can see three kinds of actions: social actions, so actions of interaction between peers; content generation, so production activities within the platforms; individual actions, so we talk about information consumption, transactional actions, and so on. These are our objectives that we must achieve when we design a gamification system. Many of our clients, unfortunately, ignore or neglect some of these objectives. We don't do a gamification system just for usage or for adoption. We design a gamification system, first of all, to generate hype. If you don't generate hype, so if you don't support the design and production of a gamification system with an effective communication strategy, you can't have the maximum impact possible to this for the project. Secondly, the adoption. So after I've generated the hype, I have to ensure that the most people of my target population will access to this platform. So here I will measure principally the coverage, for example, okay? The unique users or the average sessions, okay? There is usage. For usage, we intend regular usage of the platform. So it's not just, okay, I have 300 employees and I want the 100% of them on my platform. I want the most of all that most of them that will access to this platform with a regular approach. Then there is loyalty, so a kind of a legal affective engagement. So something more deeper with my brand, and then with the platform and the system. So here in this phase, if the players some of the aspects that are more important are first novelty. So it must not be boring, a boring system. So continuously new challenges, new prizes, new stimulus. And then also status, achievements, ramping up the leaderboard, levels, and so on. Ambassadorship is the top target, is the most difficult to obtain, but we try every time to reach this goal. These are the 6 main steps that we talk when we take when we try to design a gamification system. First, there are 3 phases: targeting identification, goal and scope definition, rewarding scheme definition, that are strictly related to user research and listening. 3 to 6 phases just to understand our customer. That for us is the employee. For the measurement system design, so in order to guarantee the strategic impact of a gamification system, we design measurement maps where to specific KPIs, okay, we link behaviors and rewards. So we have a flow of indicators that can ensure us a more effective monitoring of the program, and so on. We can intervene more effectively in the program management by specific intervention of communication, engagement, events, or changing the challenges, or introducing new dynamics or game elements. Fifth, the marketing of the gamification system. So we defined some business cases in order to prove to the client what will be the expected outcomes. And then the budgeting and definition and allocation. This is a more negotiation phase between we and the client. We identify 3 kinds of gamification projects. From a content layer, or to a process layer, or to a system layer. Content, I try to stimulate content consumption, essentially. Process gamification is I try to improve the adoption of a new system, and so the processes of this new system. For example, for a global logistic company, I designed a system to persuade couriers to shift it from an old platform to a new platform of an inventory management system. So this is in many cases, process gamification is a digital system, as a digital system that integrates with company systems in order to support the correctly activation of the business processes. System gamification is more related to the use of the platform by itself. So it's not related specifically to business processes, but to the presence and the utilization of the platform. This is one of the cases that I want to show you. This is a program that we designed and delivered for Italia, so our national training company, our national transportation company. This is for an induction program. Essentially, the client has asked us, how can we accelerate the cultural alignment of new resources? And we designed a specific website with an interactive map. Each player can see his progression by focusing on the movements of the train, of the train. and every time the train reaches a stop, it can interact with a new learning content, resolving the puzzle, answering to a quiz, or following a lesson allows the players to obtain points and so to proceed the path. Another case is for Realism. Realism asked us for for their Salesforce to a way to first standardize operational procedures, because not all the Salesforce are employees, but most of all are external professionals. So their selling activities are not always coordinated or of the same quality, of the same standards. So a client has asked us to standardize the standards and to deliver a more engaging training content with the creation of a specific platform. In this case, is a gamified learning management system. It is based on Moodle, and you can see in the left of the screen, the blue screenshot, an example of a content gamification. We took the Pac-Man metaphor that they liked very much, so they asked us to to use Pac-Man in this format. You can see also a score label in the top right, and so in this kind of project we adopted the two levels of gamification. One level that is more of a system, and the second of content gamification. In this other project, BMW asked us to accelerate the spreading of a digital mindset. And particularly, we were working with the marketing function. So we worked with the ClickOn. ClickOn is an Italian company specialized on gamification. It has a proper gamification solution external to company system. We supported ClickOn in the definition of the gamification system, so rules, mechanics, and so on. But we also assisted the client in all the communication activity. As you can see, the number of users is not much high because for us, gamification is always a part of a more broader project. This is for another energy power utilities company, E.ON. Also for the Salesforce, these two for the Salesforce. In a simple way, in the last 3 years, the Salesforce of E.ON has not a repository or a LMS to do their training efforts. So we suggested to the clients to create a new LMS gamified from the T0, from the starting point. They liked the idea, and then we support them to the production of this LMS. This one also produced by using Moodle plus Drupal. So we use two kinds of technologies for different goals. Moodle for the back-end user management system, and Drupal for the user interface and the interactions. The last project, this is just a concept of a gamification platform for Unicredit. So a very important banking institution in Italy, and not only. This has just been a concept. We are not delivered yet, but I wanted to show you this example because I think it's very interesting, and it's related to cybersecurity and cyber risk management practices. So another case of training, but I think it could be interesting to share it with you. Why gamification project fails? These are 7 reasons. First of all, poor user research. If you don't listen people, you find yourself in producing something that might not be necessary or not perceived as necessary. So another key point are rewarding schemes. Rewarding schemes have not to be considered as fixed, but they have to be dynamic and dynamically optimized. Poor monitoring optimization efforts. No or few actions to support the engagement. We can't sit after we deliver the gamification system. We have to support the gamification system with communication initiatives and other kind of initiatives like events or blogging activities or forum or community management. So player communities is absent or not cultivated. This is a key point, very important. It must be supported with a regular effort, and in many cases, companies forget that they have to also manage the player-based community. Excessive focus on intrinsic motivation levels. Academic studies have demonstrated that intrinsic motivation levels are the more powerful and more consistent over the time. And unfortunately, many companies only focus on prizes, leaderboards, and badges. This is an old approach, but we are trying to deal with it and to support the client transformation. And missing link between gamification and business goals. These are six secrets that I want to share with you. 6 principles or design principles that we have to keep in mind when we design a gamification system. First of all, always, in every moment, business alignment of the initiative in respect to business outcomes or business strategy is the key. You can design a gamification system not starting by the strategic intent of the company. So first, we study in a very deep manner vision, mission, values, and expected outcomes for this, how it is being described in the strategic plan. Second, motivation levels must be clearly defined and must be monitored and reviewed with a regular approach. Third, players community, as I mentioned before, is the heart of the gamification system. If you don't care of your players, you may assist in increasing dropout rates. So that's a very important aspect, the relation with your player base. Fourth, data. Every decision must be driven by data. If you don't monitor your data, you can't prove anything. You can't act in an effective manner. You can't continuously optimize your system. So data tracking, and so by building a reporting system, an analytics framework, or a dashboard, a series of dashboards for users to manage correctly data and to use data to refine the programs in a continuous manner. Fifth, dynamics. Game dynamics must be considered, assessed, and modified with a regular approach. And the last one, players must be involved, not just in activities. Players must be involved also by showing their efforts in the story making and storytelling process that always supports the life or the life cycle of a gamification system. Thank you for your participation. And if you have any question, you can find me on LinkedIn. Bye.